Hi, I'm Carly and welcome back to Farmer Analytics. So we have Katahdin sheep and you can see that some of them still have their wool. Here's Ginger. She's still got all her winter wool right there that she has started shedding at the bottom there on her belly. And then we have Dottie up here. She is very patchy. You can see she's shedding out most of it, but on the tops here, she's still got a lot of wool hanging on. And Betty up here is completely shed out. She looks great. She's ready for summer. And so does 25 way back here. 25's shed out all her wool. So they actually shed it out pretty soon, pretty fast in the springtime, especially after lambing. We found that they actually tend to hold on to that wool till they've lambed. It reminds me of like postpartum hair loss, where those hormones change and then they can shed out that wool. And even last year we had a yearling ewe that never took, so she was never bred, and she never shed out her wool. She was Katahdin. I think she had a little bit of Dorper in her too, but both are hair breeds and she should have shed out. We ended up having to shear her ourselves. So it's not the same for every sheep, and every sheep sheds and puts on wool at different rates. One of the biggest reasons we chose Katahdin sheep is because of the fact that they shed their wool and you don't have to shear them necessarily. Like I said, we had that one exception where we had to shear her last year. But for the most part, we breed for them to shed out their wool naturally, and we actually culled out those genetics that was holding onto that wool. Rubbing herself on this tree branch, and look at the wool that's coming off. One of the main reasons we chose sheep that shed their wool is essentially because they're a lower maintenance breed, and we wanted a sheep that we didn't have to shear. Because they don't have wool, you don't have to tail dock either, which is why all our sheep have tails. So the main issue and the main reason that sheep have their tails docked, especially wool sheep, is because that wool can actually mat and feces can collect on that back end of their tail, making it really messy and essentially can cause fly strike at the end of the day. So with the wool breed, they don't have that wool there on their tail, and they don't have the risk of getting all jammed up with feces and ending up with fly strike. So that's a huge weight taken off of us, which is why we've chose Katahdin sheep. The other reason is we don't have to shear. We don't have to learn how to shear. We don't have to have a shearer come out to do our sheep, which saves us a little bit of cost and time and management. And they're also great mothers. They have great maternal instincts. They can also carry multiples, and they actually have a lot of good dairy qualities and are able to maintain twins and triplets very easily with the amount of milk that they can produce. And another reason why we love Katahdin sheep is because they're parasite-resistant. So this means that they can handle seeing parasite loads on pasture. Their body has a great ability to get rid of those infections and naturally fight those infections using their immune system. And with that resistance, we continuously see lower fecal egg counts on them throughout the year. It's not like we don't see any eggs or any parasite issues. We still see that. They just seem to maintain lower counts and lower worm burdens versus other breeds of sheep. And with this group of sheep, like I said, we've heard a lot of other sheep owners talk about how picky sheep are and how they have a hard time having them graze on where they want to. It might be a breed thing. It might just be how we're rotating them, like I said, with smaller pastures. But we find that they'll essentially eat anything. We don't really have a problem with them grazing down, especially when we run them up on the hillside. We'll run them kind of into the woods too. And we see that they essentially eat whatever's put in front of them. We don't really have an issue with pickiness with our sheep out here. Another reason why we like Katahdin sheep is because they have great growth yields, and all of our lambs at this point are about 2 months old, and we think that they are just growing at tremendous rates. They look great. Moms are producing lots and lots of milk and growing them at great rates. They're also eating grass, they're eating hay, they're eating their grain and putting on weight at a really nice speed. Now, we've even tried adding in Dorper genetics into our flock, and this seemed to actually create a smaller product for us. Since we are raising these sheep for meat, the size of the carcass and the carcass weight is super important for us on our return and what we're getting at market for pounds of meat. And the Dorper breed actually provided us with smaller yields at the end of the day, which was pretty disappointing because a lot of what I've read on putting that Dorper breed into the mix just didn't work out for us. And this may be different for other breeds. Maybe it was the Dorper breeder that we got our Dorper genetics from. But for now, we're headed back into a genetic pool of purebred Katahdins. And this is giving us a much better meat carcass yield.